I would first like to greet all the attendees and delegates, and I would also like to thank African Mining Summit for affording myself and Arnot Opco the opportunity to tell you our story of hope and our journey into what we call a just transition. And also through this presentation, you will see how we were able to unlock the hidden value that sits in a transaction where it was almost impossible to make it a success, given the South African political and economic climate. So how does our journey to a just transition begin? In 2015, the coal supply agreement between Exxaro Arnot Coal Mine was expired and Eskom expired. So this resulted in Exxaro placing the mine under closure and rehabilitation. This was very devastating for the employees and the communities that are surrounding the mine, as the mine was one of the sole source of income for the communities. It was in the year 2015 that 8 retrenched employees identified the opportunity to procure the mine or to acquire the mine in order to operate it at their own costs. So this resulted in the formation of Innovators Resources and the Arnot Affected Employee Trust. So this trust basically houses all the beneficiaries or all the employees that were affected by the mine closure. In 2018, a partnership with West Coal was established, and West Coal is a coal mining company that is listed on the JSE. In 2019, the 1st of May, there was a Section 11 handover where the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy handed over the Section 11 consent to the employees. In the same year, we managed to get Competition Commission approval with no conditions, and we also managed to get the Eskom consent to continue with the transaction. In the same year, Arnot Holdco and Arnot Opco were incorporated for the purpose of housing this transaction. In February 2020, Arnot Opco was launched. This is where Arnot Opco took effective ownership of the asset, and plans to restart operations began. So basically, when we took over the asset, the underground sections were flooded. Some of the surface infrastructure was also dismantled. So we had a lot of work in terms of getting the mine up and ready for production. And this year in August 2021, I'm happy to announce that we secured a 10-year coal supply agreement with Eskom for Arnot Power Station, where we will be delivering coal via conveyor belt. This gives us a huge competitive advantage from a logistics point of view and a costing point of view. So this slide here shows you the ownership structure into Arnot Opco. So this is what we say, it's our journey into an inclusive ownership as we transition towards a regenerative future. So our main focus at Arnot Opco is on the social aspect of the just transition. As you can see, the ex-employee trust, or the Arnot Affected Employee Trust, together with Innovators Resources, they own 50% into Arnot Holdco. The other 50% is owned by West Coal, which is a JSE listed company. Arnot Holdco effectively holds 90% into Arnot Opco, and the other 5% and 5% is for the employee trust and the community trust respectively. So as you can see from this structure, the majority of the company is owned and operated by the ex-employees. This slide here shows you the Arnot Opco pathway to value. This is where we looked at the business over a 10-year period, and we set and strategized in a sense that how do we create a value from a mine that was under closure for a mine that was flooded. We had to look at the asset and look at how do we create value over a 10-year period. So our main strategy is to focus on stable production. So for the first 2 years, we will be mining 2 underground sections, namely 11 shaft and 10 shaft. And we will also be establishing the open cast areas in order to manage our operating costs as well. Subsequent to that, we will look at optimization Optimization will be where we look at how can we use our existing infrastructure to create more value for the company. And one of the projects that we're looking at is to use the Eskom conveyor belt to assist Eskom in handling third-party coal. This is mainly because Arnot Power Station was designed for, having the conveyor belt in mind. So it's very important for Eskom operationally to have coal being delivered by conveyor belt. So these are some of the projects that we're looking at. And then by year 8 and 9, we're looking at a radical change. This is basically where we will focus more on the energy and the agriculture space. Arnot is a asset that has quite sizable farms that we can use to go into agriculture, because we are aware in terms of the transition or the moving away from coal to more green renewable energy. So in response to that, our plan is to do a radical change between year 8 and year 9, where we will look at energy and agriculture. But for now, the focus for the first 2 years is to basically to get to stable production, to get to optimize our production. And then from year 3 onwards, we will look at growth, where we will bring in some of our life of mine projects. This slide here, it's what we believe in, and it's how we operate the mine on a day-to-day basis, where we look at a value over volume approach. So safety is our overarching #1 priority. In the mining industry, safety is very important. So how we ensure that we create this value is that we use free cash flow as a core enabler to create growth and value. This is mainly because given the current climate, it is difficult to raise funds for coal projects. So it is very important for us to have a very disciplined approach in terms of how do we manage our day-to-day cash flows in order for that to enable us to grow as a company. What we also pay attention to is our capital investment. So we have a very disciplined approach in terms of how we allocate our capital. This is information driven, and we make sure that it creates value as per the strategy of the company. And #3, we want to consistently return value to our shareholders, meaning that we want to be a dividend paying company. Hence, how we manage our free cash flows and our capital investment is very important, and also how we manage our costs. So we want to be a low cost mine, operate more in the second cost quartile of the cost curve. So this will be overseen by key cornerstones, being employees and communities, our culture as a company, and management. One thing that I am proud of is that ever since we took effective ownership of the mine in February last year, we haven't had any community unrest. If you are familiar with the South African mining environment, you will know that communities are a big risk for most mining companies. So we are proud to say that we are managing that quite actively, and we haven't had any unrest thus far. So that is in the DNA of Arnot Opco. We want to create jobs, we want to create sustainable jobs, and also create sustainable value for our shareholders. This slide basically gives you a summary of what we did to unlock value. So when we took over effective ownership, we did detailed evaluations to see how we can unlock value that was not profitable under the previous owners' hands. So as Arnot Opco, we are a startup company. Our structures are very lean and mean. So there's areas that were not potentially profitable for the previous owner as a large company that would become profitable for us. So it was through this exercise that we have done that we managed to increase our underground reserve from 14.9 million tons to 61 million tons. And we're looking at other areas where our new total, we're targeting 75.9 million tons of coal in the ground. This slide summarizes our capital investment framework. As I've mentioned previously, that we have a very disciplined approach in terms of how do we raise capital, how do we allocate capital to make sure that we invest in the right projects that can create value for the shareholders. So on the left-hand side, it basically summarizes what is the framework that we use to invest in projects, where we look at both qualitative and quantitative measures. On the right-hand side, it's the value that we've created ever since we took over. So it's been 18 months since we took over. So when we came in, the reserve was 13.8 million tons. We've managed to increase that to 20 million tons. Bear in mind that this is only based on the Eskom sales. So this is not the entire asset or other potential sales that we're looking at. The life of mine increased from 7 years to 10 years. On a net present value basis, we took it from 180 million rands to 918 million rands. There was no coal supply agreement when we took over. Now, as we speak, we've secured a 10-year coal supply agreement. The underground sections that were flooded are now 90% complete. Our plant and supporting conveyor belts, we have a crushing and screening circuit, which is 90% complete, and the DMS circuit, which is 50% complete. So this is the work that we are doing in order to service the CSA within this financial year. And in terms of the culture, when we took over where people were very demotivated, they had no hope. And now we sit with employees and communities that are excited and looking forward to the future. So the next step for us as a company is to secure export market offtake agreements. This is mainly because we want to diversify our client base. We don't want history to repeat itself. We want to be able to continue generating income, even beyond the Eskom CSA. So in conclusion, I've put in a quote there saying a rising tide doesn't rise people who don't have a boat. We have to build the boat for them. So we have to give them the basic infrastructure to rise to the tide. And this is what this transaction has been about. It's been a transaction about hope. It's been a transaction that highlights that, when we work together as government, as communities, and as business, we can really achieve something great. This transaction, it was not easy. It was not easy to get to that point, given the political climate when we initiated the transaction. But today I am proud to say, with the assistance of government, of Exxaro, of West Coal, we managed to put together this transaction. And today we are happy to say that we will be ready to start supplying coal to Arnot Power Station before the end of this financial year. So that is it from my side. I hope that you enjoyed that. I definitely enjoyed myself in giving you a glimpse of what Arnot Opco is all about. Thank you.